On July 27, 1976, in the city of Tangshan, Hebei Province, China, twin siblings Fang Deng and Fang Da were on their way home when they were startled to see a large swarm of dragonflies flying around. However, according to their father, Fang Da Qiang, the dragonflies were a sign of an impending major storm. Upon arriving home, Da Qiang instructed his children to give the newly purchased fan to his wife, Li Yuani. He then bid them farewell as he left for work at the factory, giving them some spare change to buy ice treats. Suddenly, a bully appeared and snatched Fang Da's ice. The brave Fang Deng immediately pushed the bully away, and they hurried back home. After returning, Fang Da, Fang Deng, and their mother Li Yuani enjoyed the new fan. Before bedtime, Fang Deng and Fang Da chatted with their father, and Li Yuani gave them small bags. Fang Deng chose one with a Tiananmen Square design, while Fang Da picked one with the Great Wall of China. Later, Li Yuani helped her husband organize items in the truck, and they shared a tender moment in the truck bed. On the night of July 28, 1976, the atmosphere was calm and serene, just like the previous days. However, at exactly 3 a.m., the ornamental fish in the twins' room suddenly jumped out of the aquarium, and a flash of light appeared in the distance. A massive earthquake had struck, and many who were still asleep were unable to save themselves. Meanwhile, Da Qiang and Li Yuani were deeply worried about their children. Da Qiang pushed his wife to safety in an open area, while he rushed back to save their children who were still inside the house. The earthquake, though brief, was incredibly powerful, turning the peaceful city of Tangshan into ruins. It was one of the deadliest earthquakes in history, with a magnitude of approximately 7.5 on the Richter scale, followed by an aftershock of 7.1, which worsened the devastation. After the disaster, hysterical cries were heard everywhere. According to records, over 240,000 people lost their lives, including Fang Da Qiang, who died buried under debris while trying to save his children. Li Yuani survived, but was devastated, desperately trying to retrieve her deceased husband from the rubble. Fortunately, the twins were still alive, but they were trapped under the same concrete slab, meaning that saving one would result in the immediate death of the other. As a mother, Li Yuani couldn't bear to sacrifice either of her children, but she had to make a quick decision before both succumbed to their injuries. In the end, with immense reluctance, Li Yuani chose to save Fang Da, whose left arm was tragically crushed and had to be amputated due to the concrete. Almost the entire city of Tangshan was destroyed by the earthquake. Many buildings collapsed, infrastructure was severely damaged, and essential facilities such as electricity, water, and communication were cut off. The streets were also filled with debris, making evacuation and the distribution of aid extremely difficult. Refugees were evacuated to neighboring cities, including Beijing, where Li Yuani had to carry Fang Da while scrambling to obtain social assistance distributed both by air and on land. However, amidst the victims, Fang Deng was found alive. She wandered aimlessly until she was rescued by a military officer named Wang Deqing. Tragically, Fang Deng could only remain silent and cry when asked about her family. Fang Deng was later grouped with other children who had lost their parents due to the disaster. For several months, Fang Deng's photo was placed at the emergency rescue center, but since no one came forward claiming to be her parent, she was eventually adopted by a military couple, Wang Deqing, and his wife, Dong Gilan, who had not been blessed with children. The tragedy of Tangshan, which caused Fang Deng to lose her family, left a deep trauma. She often sat silently, lost in thought, dwelling on her past. Wang Deqing and Dong Gilan called her Yaya, because she still hadn't spoken a single word. In fact, Fang Deng was so quiet that Wang Deqing initially thought she was mute. Elsewhere, Li Yuani visited her mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Her mother-in-law burst into tears and hugged Fang Da tightly, having once believed that her grandson and daughter-in-law wouldn't survive the disaster. However, her mother-in-law then easily demanded that Fang Da stay with her, reasoning that he carried the family name Fang Da Qiang. She also argued that Fang Da would be better off going to school in Jinan rather than in Tangshan, where the new school buildings were far from being completed after the earthquake. Li Yuani's sister-in-law also suggested that Li Yuani should move to Jinan and live together with them as a family of 4. But Li Yuani refused, as Fang Da was the only family she had left. She was still mourning her husband and Fang Deng, whom she believed had died. Her emotional mother-in-law blamed Li Yuani for the death of her son and the fact that Fang Da's left hand had to be amputated. In the end, Li Yuani reluctantly agreed to let Fang Da go to Jinan for the sake of his future. The next day, with a heavy heart, Li Yuani escorted her mother-in-law, sister-in-law, and Fang Da to the bus. Fang Da repeatedly called out to his mother, and Li Yuani could only cry as she watched her son leave. Witnessing Li Yuani and Fang Da's heartbreak, her sister-in-law softened and made their mother realize that taking Fang Da away was like robbing a child from his mother. Ultimately, Fang Da was allowed to get off the bus and continue living with Li Yuani. After a few days with her new family, Fang Deng still hadn't spoken a word. Eventually, when her identity needed to be recorded, she finally said her name, Wang Deng, not Fang Deng. Indeed, Fang Deng had let go of her parents' family name, Fang, and replaced it with her adoptive father's name, Wang. Hearing this, Wang Deqing and Dong Guilan were overjoyed and began talking more with Wang Deng. They even suggested she visit Tangshan to search for her lost family, but Wang Deng admitted that she didn't remember anything about her family in Tangshan. In short, 10 years have passed since the Tangshan earthquake tragedy. Li Yuani has been living as a single parent in Tangshan with her son, Fang Da, who is now in his final year of high school. She never forgets to pray for her late husband and daughter. Because Fang Da's left hand was amputated, he struggles with everyday activities. For this reason, Li Yuani encourages him to study hard so he can get into college, ensuring her mother-in-law won't blame her for insisting on raising her son 10 years ago. Instead of focusing on school, Fang Da often skips classes and works as a hotel agent at the train station. Meanwhile, Li Yuani works tirelessly in a factory to pay for his school fees and save money for his college education. Every year on July 28th, Li Yuani and Fang Da hold a simple ceremony to commemorate the earthquake and pray for Fang Da Qiang and Fang Deng. Li Yuani grows frustrated with Fang Da's behavior at school, and Fang Da, in a fit of anger, tells her that she should have saved Fang Deng instead of him 10 years ago. Hearing this, Li Yuani slaps Fang Da. The scene shifts to Wang Deng, who is still living with her adoptive family. She wakes up from a dream where she meets her 3 family members. Wang Deqing and his wife understand the trauma Wang Deng has experienced, but they occasionally argue because of her husband's attention toward Wang Deng, as if she's still a child. Because college tuition is too expensive and studying isn't his passion, Fang Da decides to move to Hangzhou to work as a rickshaw driver. Li Yuani is visibly worried about letting her son leave. Meanwhile, Wang Deng has been accepted into her desired college in Hangzhou, specifically in the medical faculty. It is there that she meets her senior, Yang Ji, for the first time. By chance, Fang Da encounters Wang Deqing, who is on his way to visit Wang Deng at her campus. At first, Wang Deqing refuses to use the rickshaw, but he eventually agrees after Fang Da pleads with him, explaining that he is disabled and struggling to make a living. During their journey, they have a conversation, and Fang Da waives the rickshaw fee after discovering that Wang Deqing was part of the rescue team during the 1976 Tangshan earthquake. When they arrive at the campus dormitory, Wang Deng feels a bit awkward seeing her adoptive father show up unannounced, especially because Yang Ji is in her room, and it turns out they are already dating. Wang Deng is shocked when she hears from Wang Deqing that her adoptive mother, Dong Guilan, is in very poor health, and that it would be better for her to come home and visit her. After Fang Da leaves for Hangzhou, Li Yuani lives alone in Tangshan. She now works as a seamstress at the market and has her own shop. A man once showed interest in her, but Li Yuani declined, feeling she was too old and had no desire to start a new relationship. Wang Deng took a leave of absence from college and temporarily worked as a nurse at the hospital to care for her adoptive mother, Dong Guilan, who was being treated there. Even though they were not related by blood, Wang Deng had grown up with Dong Guilan and her behavior was quite similar to Dong Guilan's, like how she got angry and her persistence in pursuing her goals. Dong Guilan's condition grew weaker, and she asked Wang Deng to take care of Wang Deqing after she passed away. In her final moments, Dong Guilan gave Wang Deng a watch and a savings account book, instructing her to search for her biological family, who were likely still in Tangshan. After Dong Guilan's passing, Wang Deng was deeply devastated, as was her adoptive father, Wang Deqing. In her final year of college, Wang Deng became pregnant, and Yang Ji pressured her to have an abortion. Wang Deng refused, remembering the lives lost during the Tangshan tragedy, especially her father, whose lifeless body she woke up beside. For that reason, Wang Deng could not bring herself to sacrifice the baby she was carrying. Unfortunately, Wang Deng dropped out of college and disappeared without a trace. Wang Deqing later found out that his adopted daughter had quit school and was pregnant. Furious, he confronted Yang Ji, demanding that he find Wang Deng immediately. 7 years later, in 1995, Fang Da, who had worked hard and seized every opportunity, had become the boss of a travel company. He was now engaged to a woman named Xiao He. Fang Da introduced Xiao He to Li Yuani, and as a sign of his success, he asked his mother to move to Hangzhou, promising to buy her a house if she didn't want to live under the same roof as him. However, Li Yuani refused, feeling that the spirits of her late husband and daughter were still in Tangshan and might return home someday. She told Fang Da that if he wanted her to help take care of his child in the future, he would have to bring the child to her house in Tangshan. Li Yuani also told Fang Da that he would never truly understand what loss meant until he experienced losing the person he loved most. Fang Da asked if she felt lonely living alone, to which Li Yuani replied that she would always be the wife of the late Fang Da Qiang until the end of her life. She explained that she wouldn't have survived if Fang Da Qiang hadn't stopped her from entering their collapsing home during the earthquake. Here, it became clear that while Fang Da wanted to give his mother everything, Li Yuani preferred to live a simple life in her home, where she could peacefully pray for her late husband and daughter. After dropping out of college, Wang Deng worked as a private tutor and had given birth to her daughter Diandian. Coincidentally, Fang Da and Xiao He, who were now married and had a child, also named their child Diandian. Fang Da had an argument with Xiao He because their child was often left with Li Yuani. Xiao He, as the mother, wanted to spend more time with her child. Fang Da, however, suggested renting a hotel near Li Yuani's house in Tangshan so they wouldn't have to live far apart. After years of being out of contact, Wang Deng finally reunited with her adoptive father, Wang Deqing. She confessed that she had felt ashamed for getting pregnant out of wedlock, which is why she dropped out of college and worked odd jobs while raising her daughter Diandian on her own. Initially, Wang Deqing was angry with Wang Deng for not keeping in touch, but his anger quickly faded when he saw little Diandian. As they watched Diandian playing in the town square, Wang Deng opened up about her childhood during the Tangshan earthquake. She recalled how she and her twin brother, Fang Da, were trapped under concrete rubble. Their mother saved Fang Da and had no choice but to leave Wang Deng behind. That memory had haunted Wang Deng ever since, making her feel abandoned by her biological mother. This was the reason she never returned to Tangshan to search for her family, even though her adoptive mother, Dong Guilan, had urged her to do so before passing away. It was New Year's Day, 1997. Wang Deng and Diandian were now living with Wang Deqing in his home. The atmosphere was serene and heartwarming, so much so that Wang Deqing forgot to attend a gathering with his old military friends. Later, Wang Deng informed him that she planned to marry a foreign man. Without asking too many questions or imposing strict conditions, Wang Deqing only emphasized that her future husband must love both Wang Deng and her daughter. Years passed, and by 2008, 32 years after the 1976 Tangshan earthquake, Fang Da and Wang Deng were now about 38 years old. Fang Da's travel business had grown immensely successful, while Wang Deng was living in Canada with her husband. On May 12, 2008, around 2:30 p.m., a devastating earthquake struck Sichuan, registering a magnitude of 8 on the Richter scale and claiming the lives of approximately 69,000 people. Fang Da was in Guangzhou at the time, and although the tremors reached there, he remained calm, having survived a far more destructive earthquake. In contrast, Wang Deng was deeply shaken as she watched the news and saw photos of the victims. Overwhelmed with memories of her childhood, she decided to volunteer at the disaster site, particularly to help the children who had survived. Coincidentally, Fang Da also joined a rescue team in Sichuan. At the disaster site, Wang Deng held an IV bottle for a child whose leg was trapped under concrete. The situation was dire because there was a building above them, making the rescue extremely risky. The child's mother begged the doctor to amputate her child's leg to ensure the rescue team's safety. Watching this, Wang Deng was reminded of her own mother, Li Yuani, who had faced a similarly heart-wrenching decision during the Tangshan earthquake to save Wang Deng or Fang Da. While taking a break, Wang Deng overheard a conversation between Fang Da and someone else nearby. The person asked about Fang Da's left hand, and he explained that it had been amputated because of injuries sustained during the 1976 Tangshan earthquake. He shared how he and his twin sister had been trapped under rubble, and their mother had chosen to save him while his twin sister, along with their father, Fang Da Qiang, had perished. Fang Da explained that even now, 32 years later, their mother, Li Yuani, still couldn't move past that decision. Though the destroyed homes in Tangshan had been rebuilt, Li Yuani's heart remained shattered, filled with guilt and sorrow over sacrificing her daughter. At that moment, Wang Deng revealed her identity to Fang Da, who was shocked to learn that his sister, whom he thought had died, was alive and well. Fang Da immediately informed their mother, Li Yuani, that the daughter she had thought about every single day for 32 years was finally coming to visit her. When Wang Deng arrived at the house, she met her sister-in-law, Xiaohe, and her teenage niece, Diandian. Through the window, she saw her mother, Li Yuani, busy baking. Stepping inside, Wang Deng became emotional as she noticed a childhood photo of herself displayed next to a photo of their late father, Fang Da Qiang. On the table, she saw a tomato, the last thing she ate before the earthquake separated her from her family. The past she had tried so hard to bury suddenly resurfaced in vivid detail. Moments later, Li Yuani approached Wang Deng and couldn't hold back her tears, overwhelmed by the realization that her daughter, whom she had thought was dead for 32 years, was alive. Li Yuani apologized for the difficult decision she had made all those years ago, but asked why Wang Deng had never contacted her all this time and was now reappearing so suddenly. She explained how she had thought of Wang Deng and her late husband, Fang Da Qiang, every single day since the tragedy. That night, Wang Deng shared parts of her life story. She showed photos of her adoptive parents, both of whom were military personnel and part of the rescue team during the Tangshan earthquake. She spoke about becoming pregnant by her senior in college, being pressured to have an abortion, losing her adoptive mother, living alone with her daughter Diandian, reuniting with her adoptive father after years apart, and marrying an older foreign man. Eventually, fate had brought her back to Fang Da and her biological mother, Li Yuani, after 32 long years. Hearing her daughter's story, Li Yuani was stunned and deeply saddened. She realized that Wang Deng had lived a life full of struggles and unresolved pain. Wang Deng admitted that her mother's decision to save her brother over her had haunted her for years. Later, the family visited Fang Da Qiang's grave together, and for the first time, they were all in one place again. Beside Fang Da Qiang's grave was another tombstone, Wang Deng's, erected in memory of her presumed death during the Tangshan earthquake. They opened a box stored within Wang Deng's tombstone, which contained a small Tiananmen-themed bag, Wang Deng's chosen bag on the night of the earthquake. Over the years, Li Yuani had also purchased 2 sets of schoolbooks every year, one for Fang Da and one for Wang Deng, and had kept Wang Deng's books inside the tomb. Seeing this, Wang Deng asked for her tomb to remain intact because when her time came, she wished to be buried beside her biological father. Overwhelmed with emotion, Wang Deng broke down in tears. She was disappointed in herself and found it hard to forgive herself for not coming to see her mother sooner. She realized she had prolonged her mother's suffering for years, and that despite any mistakes, family is where you are born, where you grow together, and where love, though imperfect, always exists. In 2008, the city of Tangshan erected a memorial wall to honor the 240,000 victims of the 1976 earthquake. The scene shifted to a survivor named Song Su, 65 years old, who had lost his father, sister, and child in the disaster. Song made it a point to visit the monument to pray for and honor his deceased family members. The film concludes with a tribute to the 240,000 lives lost in the Tangshan earthquake of 1976. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes, it also celebrates the rebirth of Tangshan City. And that's it for the story series of this film. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to support this channel by subscribe, like, and share. See you in the next video. Goodbye.